Thank you guys for checking out this video. My name is Ryan Dossi, and today we're gonna cover my favorite wholesale deal I've ever done because I moved a triplex that a realtor couldn't sell in 2 years for my wife's grandparents. For today's deal, we're gonna go all the way back to 2016 when young Ryan was deciding to go full-time as a real estate investor. Now, I kind of made this decision without much of a runway. I had about $3,000 to my name and about $3,000 a month in bills, so not a ton of margin for error. So the first thing I did, like anybody starting out, whether they're a realtor, a wholesaler, fix and flipper, I went to my network and who had a potential property that I could help out with. My wife's grandparents, Jack and Linda, I absolutely adore. Just total like salt of the earth people. They live out in Muncie, Indiana, a small town kind of the northeast of Indianapolis. And every time my wife and I were over for dinner or lunch, we'd constantly hear them complain about dun dun dun, the apartments, right? It was like the bane of their existence. Hey guys, how's stuff going? Oh, the apartments again. Oh, the water heater went out. Well, so-and-so hasn't paying, or we're having to do an eviction. There are people that I would say are cut out for buy and hold investing, but there comes a certain time when maybe it's time to liquidate and retire, or it's just not for you anymore, right? Jack and Linda are the kind of folks that did everything themselves and did a really good job with it. Really, really fair people to rent from. This was definitely kind of a C-class property, and they were done. they wanted out. So they did what most folks do. They found a realtor who listed it on the MLS, got, some random showings, a tire kicker offer or two that never really panned out, and ultimately the property just kept sitting and sitting and sitting. So it was about this time that I said, hey, look, I want to try something. I want to see if I can sell the house, or the triplex, I should say, for what you guys are asking on the MLS off market. Are you guys out of contract with your realtor? They said yes. So they pulled it off of the market and went under contract with me as the buyer for $75,000, the same dollar amount they had the property listed for. So here's the interesting thing with this deal. It had been listed on the MLS and no one was really interested. Now, conventional wisdom tells us that sellers are going to be better off in all circumstances listing a property on the MLS. And as this proves, that's not always the case. Now, in my humble opinion, the realtor could have done a much better job getting the property out there, better, higher quality photos, more detailed information on things like the profit and loss that would have appealed to somebody looking to buy an investment property that was really kind of non-existent. But the cool thing with this deal is had he been able to sell it for them at their asking price, if nothing came up on inspections, they didn't pay any closing costs, if they didn't have to do anything, the most amount of money they would have got after the 6% in realtor commissions would have cost them $4,500, right? So almost $5,000 less. They would have got right at like $71,500. I was able to move this deal, getting them $75,000 net to them as a check into their pocket, right? There was nothing came out of that. All I did was tacked a fee on top. So how I was able to sell this property was I positioned it how an investor would be interested in it. So walked through like how much rent the units were bringing in, what the NOI or net operating income looks like, how much money the property was pulling in, what sort of a return this would be for a buy and hold investor. And I put it out on Craigslist, Facebook, as well as biggerpockets.com. Within a week, I had a buyer interested who owned property in the area at $80,000 cash. They ended up buying the property, closing the deal. We got my wife's grandparents out of the apartments that they hated so much. And my wife and I made $5,000 selling a house that a realtor was unable to sell. So that's probably my favorite wholesale deal. By no means the most money I've made on a deal. It's actually one of the smaller deals I've ever done. But it was really, really neat to get to see the way as an investor we're able to leave the people that we're working with better off than when we'd initially ran into them, right? An old mentor of mine, Jerry, has what he calls the grocery store model. And that's if I'm, walking down the bread aisle and I run across somebody whose house I bought or somebody whose house I flipped or kept as rental, whatever, somebody I ran into as a business owner. If I'm seeing them in the grocery store, can I walk up, look them dead in the eyes, shake their hand and ask them how the kids are doing? Or do you need to kind of like tuck tail, turd, and like slip out the back, right? So I always have just kind of chose to run a business that would pass the grocery store model test. And quite frankly, as an investor, we treat the folks that we work with the same way we treat my wife's family. So that's kind of a quick recap of my favorite wholesale deal I've ever done. Kind of just an encouragement of if you run into a situation where a property was listed and hasn't sold, there could be a lot of other reasons why other than just price, right? So it could be they had bad photos, they were missing data, maybe the realtor just kind of listed it and hoped somebody would find it and didn't really do anything to push or promote it like I did with this particular deal. So just because something's been listed doesn't mean I would be afraid of touching it. That being said, as an investor, that's a great excuse to get a better deal. Had this, not been my wife's grandparents, that would have been a great way to explain, hey, look, I can't pay you $75,000. The property's been listed for 2 years and nobody's been interested at that price. So the best we can do is say X, right? Be sure to like, subscribe, and as always, tell your friends if this is content you're enjoying. Talk to you guys next time.